Sometimes it's not the process that destroys us, but it's how we see the process. Are you feeling lost and oftentimes wonder, will anyone ever find me in this dark place? I feel you, I see you, I was there until I found Jesus and His grace. Welcome to the If It's Just One podcast. I'm your host, Stashani Atkins. I must admit I don't have it all together, but I believe with a little encouragement we will make it to heaven together. We oftentimes underestimate the power of one, but Jesus left the 99 for one. And so, if this podcast only reaches one person, that's all that matters. This podcast will be focused on encouraging you, my brothers and sisters, to rise above the challenges that prevent us from being who God has called us to be. Stay tuned. We really need each other. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today I will be talking about perspective during the process. I believe that we all go through a process. We can define the process as a series of events that take place in our lives for us to achieve a particular end. But sometimes the process that we go through can be so bad that we feel there is no way we can survive. It's like we're traveling through a long dark tunnel, and because of the length of time we're spending in the tunnel and how dark the tunnel is, the thought of seeing light and getting to the other side starts to leave our mind, and so we might give up and stay in the tunnel when it was supposed to take us to the other side. In other words, we start to view the process as the end, when it's just a means to the end. And this is where perspective during the process comes in. How you see the process is everything. It will determine what you do during the process. It will determine how you speak during the process. Let's put context to it. Say, for instance, you are going through a dark season in your life where you have been betrayed by a family member or someone very close to you. That's the process. But if you see that process as forever, you will never make any effort to heal and forgive this person because you can never see yourself on the other side of pain. It will also determine what you say during the process. You might say things like, I will never trust anyone again. And that's all because of how you see the process. God sometimes puts us in a process in order for us to be who He has called us to be. And our perspective during the process can determine whether we become that person or not. Also, when we're going through our process, the devil will introduce himself and he will try to tell us what the process is. And if we form our perspective based on what he says, we know that cannot end well, because Satan's end goal is to steal, kill, and destroy. Some of the most precious and valuable things in life go through a process. Diamonds are formed when carbon deposits deep within the Earth's crust are exposed to great heat and pressure. We might go into jewelry stores and see these beautiful diamonds, but they were made under great heat and pressure. Pearls are made when an irritant slips between the shells of an oyster, and in an act of self-defense, the oyster releases a liquid. The liquid then intermingles with the irritant to create a material called nacre, and layers of nacre then form a pearl. And so, like pearls and diamonds, the best version of us is formed by high pressure, heat, and irritation that we experience during our process. I believe there are so many of us who want to become a better version of ourselves, but it's surviving the process that is difficult. So many of us give up in the middle of the process because it gets so messy that we can't see how anything beautiful can come from the mess. As I mentioned before, it's like going through a dark tunnel, and because we're taking so long to see the light, we give up because that's the easiest thing to do in the moment. And what should be a stage of our life ending up being a state. What should be a means to an end ending up becoming the end. And if you're going through a process in your life and you have thrown in the towel, it seems like better will never come. Can I ask you something? If the process is so bad that you're willing to give up because you can't see yourself on the other side, why do you want to stay there? Because when you give up, you're making the decision to stay in a place that you want to get out of so badly. So many of us have given up, not knowing that we're only prolonging the misery and pain we're experiencing. Did you know that it should have taken the Israelites 11 days to reach the promised land? But because of their grumbling, lack of trust, rebellion, and failure to reflect on the goodness of God, it took them 40 years to reach the promised land. They spent so many years wandering in the wilderness when they could have been in the promised land enjoying the life that God has promised them. But let's not be too quick to judge the Israelites, because many of us have been spending more time in our wilderness than what is required. The wilderness is an uncultivated, uninhabited, unhospitable place in our lives. Uncultivated in that we cannot bear any fruit there, meaning we can't achieve anything there. Uninhabited in that it's a lonely place. We are the only one there. And unhospitable, meaning it's an unfriendly place. It has nothing good to offer. It's cruel to its visitors. So many of us might know this place all too well because we have been there, or we are right there now. If you are there right now, I want to tell you that this place is not the end. It's just a means to the end. For the Israelites, the wilderness was just a place they had to go through to reach the promised land, but they saw it the wrong way, and so they spent a longer time there than they should. So like the Israelites, the wilderness is just a place you have to pass through to be the best version of you. It's your process, but perspective is important because if you see it as the end, you will spend longer than you should in your wilderness. And when we spend a long time in our process, it will strip us of our hope and leave us with regret. The wilderness is a place that will rob us of precious years and even our entire lives because many of the Israelites must have died before reaching the promised land. And if we're not careful, we too might die in our wilderness, in that place of unfruitfulness, loneliness, and unfriendliness. Some of you might ask, how do I remain positive during the process? Well, you can remain positive by holding on to God as you go through your process. This is so important because our strength will fail. We will get weary, and so we need God in order to survive the process. On days when we can't go any further, we need Him to carry us. While you're going through the process, continue to reflect on His goodness and all that He has done for you. Know that even though you might be still going through your process, the mere fact that you are alive is something to be grateful for. Gratitude will shift your mind from the wilderness to the Waymaker. Another thing you can do is remember His words. Remember that Romans 8 verse 28 tells us that He causes all things to work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. And Romans 8 verses 31 to 39 tells us that nothing can separate us from His love. Also, remember that if He allows it, there is a purpose in it. We cannot mention the process and not mention Joseph in the Bible. This man was betrayed by his brothers and was sold into slavery. He was thrown in prison because of his integrity, but through it all, God was working all things together for his good. Before Joseph could reach the palace, he had to pass through the pit and prison. That was his process. It wasn't easy, but in the end he was able to say to the brothers that betrayed him, "But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." So sometimes things may happen during our process that may break our hearts and steal our joy. And in those moments, it is easy to forget that God has a hand in every part of our lives. So my brothers and sisters, the process is never easy, but bear in mind that a better version of you is the end goal. So many of us might want to start a business, but we're scared of the process. So many of us want to go back to school, but we're scared of the process. Many of us want to love again, but we're scared of the process. But it is only impossible until it's done. At the end of the day, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward." So whatever you do in your process, you have to keep moving forward. And if there's anyone who feels stuck in the process and it seems as if you can't continue because your strength has failed, the beauty about coming to the end of yourself is that you can let Jesus do what he wants to do, and that is to carry you. All you have to do is give your life to him and admit that you cannot do it on your own. The process is never easy, but with Jesus it is possible. You might be experiencing burnout from trying to do it all on your own, but come to Jesus. He has already left the 99 to give you beauty for your ashes. So, if you have a testimony of how God has helped you through your process, please feel free to share in the comment section. If this episode has encouraged you, please like and subscribe and share with someone you think it will encourage. See you in the next episode. And remember, we need Jesus and we need each other.